Hi, I'm McCauley, and I'm in Syracuse, New York, and I'm at Pray It Off. And last week, we talked about, healing and God's healing love a little bit. And I shared with people how so much of my life that I had felt that I was broken in so many ways. I got phone calls from members of the group. I got emails and texts from members of the group saying, Ellen, I thought I was the only one who felt broken. I felt I was the only one who had lived some life experiences that were so painful that I didn't know if I could ever get back on the path to wholeness. And it just stayed with me, these phone calls and this sharing. And I really asked for God's help. And Father Pryor's sermon last Sunday was so powerful, and it really affected me. I get out a notepad. I'm taking notes, And this week I wanted to talk about brokenness and healing. And this first article is a really an explanation of Matthew 9. And even though we're not on it, it's so powerful to discuss about how Jesus, I remember, now when you talk about healing, sometimes you talk about, and the Bible does, it gets right to the nitty gritty. There was a woman who was bleeding, hemorrhaging, and he allows this impure, she's bleeding. The Jewish faith and women, there were strict laws, but he allows her to touch him, which made him, in the Jewish eyes, unclean. And everything in the Bible is for instruction and purpose, and it is to show us that he is willing to touch us in our brokenness so that we might be made whole. And I know what this subject does to me, so I have my Kleenexes already ready here. So if I go down, you guys, I'm sorry, but when we get on this topic, when I think about all the times where I thought, I have to be perfect so that Jesus will love me, so that I'll be a good Christian, so that I can be, worthy. And so often I forgot that Jesus is willing to touch me at all points of my life. And it further goes on to talk about how women were always second-class citizens. And who was Jesus with? The tax collectors, the lepers, the women, the marginalized. It was the socially powerless who most readily embraced him. And there's another description of the hemorrhaging woman who was so desperate. She was so desperate. And when you really look at the culture back then, when someone is having this uncontrolled bleeding, they can't get married, they can't have children. Unmarried women in the first century, to be unmarried was terrifying. They had no value. They were just, that condition was unbearable. So unbearable that out of desperation, it drove her to Christ. My life, this woman's life, I'm pretending I'm her, was so unbearable that she risked touching him to be healed. And how many times has desperation driven us to a faith that refuses to be deterred? I can't tell you, when I started this group in January of 2008, I was desperate. I did everything. I had lost the weight, gained the weight. I was so desperate. And Christ was there in my desperation. He was there to help me. Jesus is unashamed to be identified with the uncleanness of the woman. And I want to read this. In the times of our deepest pain, the assurance of God's presence can provide comfort commensurate with the pain. This is true because the one we claim as Lord embraced our ultimate humiliation and shame on the cross, refusing even a simple narcotic to deaden the pain. They offered him wine on a sponge or whatever it was, and he refused it. He knows how we feel. And then there's the story about the young girl who was from a ruler, and she was dead, and they asked Jesus to go. This was There was professional mourners there. They knew this girl was dead. She was not asleep. You know how we say people pass away? Well, back then they would say someone was sleeping, but they were actually, that was their euphemism for dead. Touching someone who is dead is the most serious uncleanness anyone could contract back in that culture. You were unclean yourself then for 7 days. Do you think Jesus cared about that? He reached down, he took her hand, he touched her. He was not worried about having people touch him. And you know what else this passage reminded me of? The power of touch. I believe the hugs are so important. When you get weighted. One night it was kind of hectic, and this one person came up to me afterwards and said, "Are you mad at me?" I go, "No." She goes, "I didn't get my hug." I'm like, "No, get over here." I think the hug is so important. I think, when I'm at work, I say to people, "Can I give you a hug?" And they say yes, and I give them a big hug. Sometimes people just, now I don't have to have permission. They know I'm going to hug them. Hugging, taking hands, being with them. Now we're going to talk about brokenness and inner healing. This is from the Jesuits, and this week I lost a Jesuit professor that I love so much, Father Donald Zayway at Lemoyne College. He was 89 years old, and I just love the man so much. So Bob and I went up to Lemoyne for his memorial service, and I just think, if minds as brilliant as the Jesuits believe in the power of God, that's very powerful for me. And this person here says, "As I reflect over my life, I discover some areas that are so hard to look at that I wonder how God can love me through and through when I experience so much in myself that is unlovable." I don't know about you, but I do that, and I've tried to get better since Pray It Up. I have snapshots of my life that I can pull out of a wallet and say, someone will say, "Oh, Ellen, you're so wonderful." And right then, there's a snapshot of something I did here, or something I did here, or something I did here. And I think, ooh, if they knew that, they wouldn't think I was so wonderful. If they could see some of the sins or some of the things I have done, I am unlovable. And that unlovableness is what drives many of us to the food. You think I should have, or why did I? And you beat yourself up and you eat, you overeat. And Christ is there saying, I know what you did in 78. I know what you did in whatever. I love you. I forgive you. And then, so many times we talk about we're products of our environment. And I love this too. Each child, not a few, each child is born into a world that is broken and into an environment in which something has gone wrong. Often in ignorance and sometimes even in full consciousness, we contribute to the brokenness that we're trying to escape. I'm so unhappy with my weight. Why don't I eat a bag of chips? I'm contributing to my own unhappiness because it's so hard to overcome that desire to heal my own brokenness. And is it work? Absolutely it's work. But God is there to help us. The truth remains that God is love and loves each person in every aspect and detail of one's life. He came to bring good news of reconciliation and healing. He does not say, if you clean up your act, then I'll love you. He says, I love you right where you are. And as Joanne said, we have trouble loving ourselves right where we are. We don't. And that's where we have to heal our own brokenness. We are being called to let God's love into every nook and cranny of our heart. The first moment of healing is to admit one's need. The second moment is to name this need more accurately. We decided we needed healing over our weight when we joined Pray It Off. No one joins the group and says, I'm joining and I don't want to lose any weight, I just want to come. And we joined the group to lose weight. We named it, we have some weight to lose, then we go on the journey. Another moment in the healing process is telling my story to someone. In a little bit, we do it in the groups. We do it at the tables. And over time, you think about your table mates. You think you're going home, geez, I wonder how, he or she's doing. And I wonder if they're having a struggle with this. And one time someone didn't mention, because it was an emergency, that she had to miss a couple weeks. And several of her table mates came up to me and said, where's such and such? Is she okay? They were worried about her. You make that connection. We need to open our heart, though, to the possibility of enlightenment and healing. If we're closed in, if we're like that one friend I told you about who's like, it won't work, it won't work, it won't work, that's not being open. If you say, I've done it all before, it's not going to work. Kevin just told in his witness that he had a spreadsheet. He was logging what he wrote. Why didn't it work? You got to keep trying till you find something that works. We also, many of us, have had a distorted image of God. We think God is this judgmental, fierce, so many times we've heard about God did that, God's going to judge you, God's going to get you. And when we lose sight of the love, of the acceptance, then we are losing sight of the help that God can give us, like a loving parent. Many times we have talked in this group about how Bob and I have an older son that we have not seen in 10 years. We do not know where he is. We don't know where he is. And yet, if I saw him tomorrow and we knew he was in prison, I wouldn't care. We wouldn't care no matter what he's been doing because we love him. And that's how God is with us. God does not care what we've done because he is a loving parent and he loves us. So here's some suggestions that we can do. We need to see at certain times, imagine the risen Lord taking us by the hand. We're going for a walk. He's taken us by the hand. We're going to walk with him. We're going to talk with him. Also, if there's been a terrible hurt in your life, imagine 2 empty chairs. Imagine someone who's hurt you terribly in one chair. Imagine Jesus in another chair. And imagine yourself and have a conversation. Say, you know what, Dad, when I was younger and you would drink too much and you'd come home and you would hit Mom, it really upset me. That really upset me. And then Jesus might say, why don't you talk about that? What was going on? And then your dad might say, I was ill, I had a disease, and I love you so much, and I never meant to hurt you, and I never meant to hurt this. And then you're having this conversation with Jesus and the person who hurt you, who maybe isn't even around anymore. It can be cathartic just to think of that kind of healing. Because with Jesus there, you're not going to say, you stupid idiot, you really hurt my feelings. You might, but I wouldn't talk like that in front of Jesus. I really wouldn't. I'd clean up my act in front of Jesus. And just imagine, he's with us all the time. He's with us all the time. So maybe we should clean up our act all the time. Also, make use of the image of the wailing wall. Allow your pain to come to the surface. We're real criers in our family. Like I said, I saw the soldier doing the salute and I just stopped what I was doing, and then Bob missed it and I told him we both cried about it. It's okay to cry and feel your emotions. Also, another thing that can help is look at these Bible stories. If you're having some kind of blindness in your life and you can't see your way to weight loss success, become the blind person in Mark 8:22-26. Become that person. So often when I don't want to go for a walk, I imagine the people where I work who would give anything to get out of their wheelchairs and walk. And then that spurs me on because I can walk. Also, think of the leper. Think of the way the lepers feel. That's what Father Crier was talking about. The 10 lepers. And the one who came back and said, thank you. Have we said thank you enough to God? Or think of yourself, if you think you're being controlled by an alien force that's making you eat those bonbons, think of the person who's had the demonic forces in Mark 5:120. Just remember all the different stories. Put yourself in those person's shoes. And always remember this: nothing can separate me from the love of God. Nothing. It doesn't say here, oh, there's a couple of things, pay attention. It says nothing. And it also says the truth will set you free.